As a 3-time international award-winning restaurant, Joe's New York Pizza uses only the freshest and best available ingredients. From giant slices of hand-tossed pie to calzone, strombolis, fingers, and wings, Joe's serves all your favorites. Stop in for a slice at one of their 2 Las Vegas locations at Paradise and Harmon or South Las Vegas Boulevard, or you can check out their menu at joesnewyorkpizzalv.com.
Whether you're a corporate executive, on a family vacation, or just passing through, St. George Inn & Suites will meet your specific needs. It's conveniently located near restaurants, shopping, and movie theaters. St. George Inn & Suites offers a variety of room types, 2 fabulous pools and jacuzzis, a fitness center, a free full hot buffet breakfast, and laundry facilities. To make your booking, call 435-673-6661 or book online at stgeorgeinnhotel.com. You need to stop in Southern Utah? Make that stop at St. George Inn & Suites.
STN Sports is the only sports betting app you need this season. STN Sports has it all. In-play betting, mobile parlay cards, the Play Plus card to fund and withdraw from anywhere in Nevada, and the latest lines on every game. STN Sports even lets you earn rewards on every bet. Safe and easy betting from your phone or tablet. Go to stationcasinosports.com or sign up at any Station Casino, Fiesta Wildfire, or the El Cortez. Details at the sportsbooks.
A great time! Your entertainment destination, the South Point, invites you to experience the ultimate great time under one roof. Bowling, dancing, a live show, a movie, delicious dining, and one of South Point's 11 restaurants. So much to see, so much to do. You won't know where to start first. This week, make it a South Point week and discover for yourself why the South Point is your entertainment destination for a great time.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
What's up, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits time on a Monday. So glad you can join us. And yes, we are here. And we are live in the KSHP studios and broadcasting everywhere on YouTube. Of course, my personal Twitter page, Pushing Limits LV, everywhere. Video and audio if you're not listening live on the AM dial. And boy, this is a day where we have plenty to get to. It seems like every Monday there's a lot of news, but it seems like this Monday, more news than usual. We got some great guests lined up for you today, and we're going to have some fun. Unless you're a Raiders fan, the first segment might not be so much fun for you. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, even though Democrats are taking over the Senate, which is a big win for them and unexpected, there's still a big race in Georgia that is yet to be determined, and there's a runoff between Raphael Warnock and the imbecile, which is Herschel Walker. Well, lady joining us at the bottom of the hour, her name is Sarah Riggs Amico. She is the former, she ran for lieutenant governor out there. And she is a surrogate for the Raphael Warnock campaign. She's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour, talk a little bit about that. And the national spectrum, what's going on here politically after the elections. Then coming up in hour number 2, I had this gentleman in studio before. He ran for governor in the great state of Nevada. And, he said we're going to be taking our state back now that Joe Lombardo is the governor. And confusing statement to me. This is a man who I have a lot of respect for. He's a nice guy. He came in the studio when he was running for governor. His name's Guy Nohra. Nice guy, but don't agree with a lot of his politics. And he agreed to come on here in hour number 2, and we're going to talk to him and find out why he thinks we lost our state, and now we're going to get it back because Joe Lombardo is going to wave his magic wand, I guess. I don't know. We'll ask Guy coming up in hour number 2. We got Chris Wynn in the house, of course, as he joins us every Monday. Chris, thanks for coming in again as usual. How was your weekend?
Brian, good to join you. It was an eventful weekend without question across the board. Celebrated Veterans Day weekend. As a veteran, got a chance to cover a lot of UNLV sports. Of course, also some Vegas Golden Knights action in town. It's going to continue to be for the near future. And then, of course, what went down at Allegiant Stadium last night with the Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts. Our NFL franchise here in town is under the spotlight, nationwide, to be quite honest with you, given that it is a team that has underachieved in the National Football League. So, of course, there's going to be a lot to discuss on the front, all things silver and black. And so we had a chance to, we're going to get a chance to dive into that amongst all the other topics you brought up as well.
And we'll, at the bottom of the hour, we'll talk a little bit more about the political spectrum nationally and, of course, locally with Catherine Cortez Masto with a big win, pulling it out. So we'll talk about that later on the show. Let's start with the big story. Now, normally, the Raiders versus the Colts, with their records at this time of the year, would not be a story at all. These are two teams that are struggling, that are not going to make the playoffs. But the reason why this is such a big story, Josh McDaniels on the hot seat, Derek Carr playing some bad football, the Raiders just sucking, for lack of a better term, and then the Colts firing their head coach last week. And then, to everybody's surprise, including Jeff Saturday, he was named the head coach. So there are a lot of interesting storylines to this game. Quickly, I'll just go over the game. Unless you're living under a rock, you didn't watch the game. It was a very entertaining football game for two bad football teams. Matt Ryan, back and forth action with Derek Carr. The problem with this game, like many with the Raiders, is they got off to a horrible start. They came out flat, and the Colts had a nice first drive. They score a touchdown. Just before you know it, the Raiders are lucky that they're only down 10-0, but they're climbing uphill from there. Derek Carr, incomplete his first 5 passes. I think that was a record this year for quarterbacks and not completing one of their first 5 passes. Just a terrible first quarter for the Raiders and Derek Carr. He woke up in the second. Game got closer. But then in the second half, the defense really let the Raiders down. They gave up a couple huge chunk plays, and that's really all the Colts needed. It came down to the wire. And yes, the Raiders had an opportunity to score a touchdown to win by 1 late. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to dissect the game. They lost to a very bad football team in the Indianapolis Colts. Yes, Matt Ryan at the latter end of his career played a pretty good, sound football game, good enough to win. The Raiders' defense was terrible. They were soft. Devontae Adams proved once again why he's the best receiver in football. He was phenomenal. Derek Carr was not very good. He was average. He was terrible in the first. The defense was terrible. Josh McDaniels was outcoached by a guy who's never been a head coach in the National Football League in Jeff Saturday. It was another embarrassment, and there were a lot of boos during the game. I don't condone this behavior. People threw alcohol and beers at Josh McDaniels as he was walking off the field. A lot of fans very, very upset. I do not condone that behavior. But I will say this about Derek Carr, and I've said this about him before, Chris, and then I'll get your thoughts on the game and all that stuff. I've always liked Derek Carr as a person. I think he's a good dude. He's great with the media. He wears his heart on his sleeve. I love that about Derek Carr. But we saw a different Derek Carr after the game, and this was a Derek Carr that was emotionally beaten up, and it finally hit him. And this is tough. Listen, this team is 2-7, and there are guys in the locker room that care. Derek Carr is certainly one of them. Listen to Derek Carr after the game, obviously very emotional.
Derek, this obviously isn't where you guys expect it to be at this point in the season. Do you have any explanation for just where this team stands right now?
I can't speak for everybody. I know where I stand, and I love the silver and black. I'm going to give it everything I can every time I go out there. And I can't speak for everybody, for every man, what's going on in their head. But I can tell you what's going on in my head, and I'm going to give it all that I can every single time.
So he just breaks down there, but here's where it gets even more, not going to say interesting, but telling, Chris. He continues to break down, and by the way, I don't fault him for doing so. In fact, I would praise him for showing that he cares. But he is calling out his teammates in a very interesting and concerning way. It continues here, and some idiot member of the media tries to interrupt him when he's breaking down at the podium. Listen to this.
Sorry for being emotional. I'm just pissed off about some of the things, that a lot of us try and do just to practice what we put our bodies through just to sleep at night. And for that to be the result of all that effort pisses me off. Pisses a lot of guys off. It's hard knowing what some guys are doing. Like I said, just to practice what they're putting in their body just to sleep at night. Like just so we could be there for each other. And I wish everybody in that room felt the same way about this place. And as a leader, that pisses me off, if I'm being honest.
If you're going to take one quote from that press conference, that is it right there. I wish everybody in that room, he's talking about the locker room, felt the same way that I felt about Raider Nation, and that pisses me off. What he is saying, and he alluded to it even more later on in the press conference, Chris, is that there are players in, and I'm taking into what he said and reading between the lines. There are players in that locker room that are not giving 100%. There are players in that locker room that are going through the motions and are not putting everything into it that they should be, like he is. That's what I got from that press conference, and he's angry at some of his teammates. He's not really angry at the veterans. He's not angry at the true leaders in the locker room that are also calling it out. He is angry at the guys, maybe some of the new faces, some of the guys in the locker room that are not giving it their all. He was asked about Josh McDaniels, and he said Josh McDaniels and the staff, he loves the staff, and they have more success than he's had, he said in the press conference. We can read between the lines and we can criticize Josh McDaniels till the cows come home. Yes, I don't think Josh McDaniels is a very good head coach. They have done a terrible job, and if he was fired today, I would say it's a good move by Mark Davis. That's not going to happen. But it is very deeply concerning, and it leads me to believe that the locker room has been lost. And you could blame the coach for that. I think that's very fair. But there are guys in the locker room. This is your starting quarterback. This is the face of the franchise basically saying that he is pissed off because there are guys in that locker room that are not giving it their all and don't understand Raider Nation and don't understand what it takes to win in the National Football League. This is very, very concerning.
So a couple of things. Obviously, it would almost be trivial, to be honest with you, to break down the game from a standpoint of, the Colts and the Raiders. We've seen this story before with the loss yesterday to Indianapolis. Last year, this was a team on the football field that would win close games like this. This year, it's completely the opposite. They lose close games like this. They find a way to come up with defeats. So I'm not going to take it too deep a dive into what transpired on the field. It was another loss for the Raiders and a loss to a team that they probably should have beat. Everything that led up to this football game, right, Brian, was about stuff off the field. We were talking about it nonstop from both coaching standpoints, right? Josh McDaniels here in Vegas under fire because it was a team that had expectations and they were not living up to it. For Indianapolis, it was because they fired their coach and then they brought in a guy who has no head coaching experience whatsoever above the high school level, and it basically pulling him off the street out of the TV studio and putting him on the sidelines for the Colts. So we talked about this, and it was nonstop back and forth. And the sentiment was Josh McDaniels and the Raiders need to have a sense of urgency and not lose this football game. They have to find a way to come out with a victory in this one. They were not able to. So what happened? So now he leads us to after the game and the press conference. You just played the press conference of Derek Carr. You yourself got some audio from the new head coach of the Colts that we're probably going to be playing in just a couple of minutes, and his reaction to this game. From a Raiders standpoint, I don't think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there are real issues as far as Josh McDaniels losing this locker room. And now the discussion begins. And it doesn't matter if you're an expert on the Raiders, if you cover them in the media, if you are a fan of, you're part of Silver and Black Nation and Raider Nation out there. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that it looks like Josh McDaniels, his time is looking to be very short as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if it's going to be before the season ends. I don't know if it's going to be right at the end of the season. And I don't know if it's going to be maybe even extended longer than that. But it is clear through Derek Carr's comments and the sentiment that was expressed through him and what we've seen the past few weeks with his team that Josh McDaniels is not the guy. And they're going to be looking to go a different direction. And it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
Well, I can tell you,
that was clearly evident by what transpired yesterday after this.
Here's what I can tell you in people that I know that are at practice every day, people that I trust. and there's not many in this town, as you know.
Well,
but
we
people,
both, yes.
But here's I can tell you that people that I've
people
talked
that
to that are around the team every day, and they tell me that is not the case. What I've been told is that Josh McDaniels and his staff are not happy with many of the players that they have inherited. Most of these players will not be on this team next year. Very few will be coming back. With that being said, I'm not saying my personal opinion is different than yours. I believe he should be fired. I'm very clear on that opinion. However, what I've heard from members of the media is that Mark Davis, I'm talking about Mark Davis right now, not our opinions. Mark Davis, Josh McDaniels, and that staff, they're going to give them time to reload the roster and to reset. And from what I understand, he can lose every game the rest of the year this year. They are not going to fire him. They're going to give him next year. If there is not vast improvement by the end of next year, then yes, he will be gone. That they're going to give him another year. They are not happy with the players that they inherited. It comes from the general manager all the way down. So that is what I've heard. I am not telling you that I agree with that because, quite frankly, I don't. But I'm just telling you what I hear from what the organization is going to do. That's all.
Okay, so let me address that, what he said regarding what he thinks as far as effort level with players, right? Mm-hmm. The Raiders are not some special case. They are not some anomaly. They're every single team in the NFL, all 32 NFL teams, have to deal with this type of apathy from certain players, right? Not every player has a buy-in as much as other players on teams across the league. This isn't something unique to the Raiders. So while I understand Derek's sentiment there, and I understand what he's saying, it's not like this is just something that's happened in Vegas. All right, this is something that goes on with other teams where guys just don't care as much about the team as other guys do. Right. Derek happens to be one of those guys that's passionate. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Derek happens to be
you,
one of those people. But it's not something that is unique.
I can tell you
to
who
Las
does.
Vegas.
The veterans. Devontae Adams cares. You can see it. Max Crosby cares. He might be the only guy on the defense these days that is doing anything. Most of the people on the roster will not be on the roster next year. I can tell you that right now. And by the way, I think that includes Derek Carr. I will also be shocked right now if Derek Carr is on the roster next year. Raiders owner Mark Davis today gave first-year head coach Josh McDaniels a resounding vote of confidence. He said, as far as Josh goes, I have no issues. I'm getting to know him a lot better. When you sign someone to a contract, don't you expect him to fulfill the contract? So that is what Mark Davis said today in a statement. So again, that's where we stand. I'm not saying I agree with that sentiment, but what I am saying is Josh McDaniels is not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere for a little while, regardless of what happens this year. So fans are just going to have to expect it. I'm not saying I agree with that. How many times do I have to say that? Josh McDaniels is not a good head football coach. He's a proven. I don't care what he did in New England. I'm so sick of people thinking because you work under arguably the best head coach in the history of the NFL and in Tom Brady's prime, arguably the best quarterback in the history of the NFL, that somehow that will make you a great head coach. There are some people that feel that way. I'm not one of them. Let's go on the other side. To the Indianapolis Colts quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the Colts, but the Jeff Saturday story is an interesting story yesterday. Here's a guy that's
different.
Yeah, there's a guy that goes from TV one week and now he's all of a sudden he's the head coach. And there's a lot of players that probably don't think he earns the respect yet. And he talked about that in the locker room. So I wanted to go in the Colts locker room and I wanted to go to the press conference because I wanted to talk to Jeff Saturday. And I wanted to ask Jeff Saturday what this day was like for him. He goes from player to TV analyst, now to head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. So here's the question that I asked Jeff Saturday after the game. Obviously, he was pretty emotional too, Jeff Saturday. It was a big day for him. Here's how that went down.
Jeff, from a personal standpoint, what was this day like for you from the moment you woke up to right now, adrenaline-wise? What was this like for you today?
Yeah, it would have been interesting to have a heart monitor on me. You know, it was fantastic. You know, I woke up, spoke to my wife early, a lot of prayer. Did church on the phone, and watched my normal church back home. Talked to my son and my wife, and then had a lot of text of just encouragement, prayer, thoughts, all those things, and so grateful for that. All the boys sending text chains and go get it, and Edge sent me a text, and he's I'm here, and it was just it was magical in all honesty. In truth, I felt very at peace. I felt like we had a really good plan in place. I felt like all the men who I had talked about empowering and giving them the ability to do what they can do exceptionally well, they all stepped up. And so I knew what my role was, and I was going to execute my role to the best of my ability, and I was going to allow all of those men to do the same. And they stepped up, man, and it's an incredible day. And again, it's one win, but heck, man, they're hard to get in this NFL. So just really proud of each and every one of them in their effort.
There you go. Very animated and excited Jeff Saturday. It was actually a fun press conference, a lot more fun than the Raiders, that's for sure. But it's funny because Jeff Saturday, a couple weeks ago, as a member of the media, just like us, tweeted, Raiders look horrible in regards to the game a few weeks ago that I was at in New Orleans. And he's tweeting. I wanted to ask him that, but I didn't. I guess I
giving his honest analysis.
Yeah,
Brian,
he said they looked horrible a few weeks ago, and he was right, by the way.
Yeah.
And now he's coaching against them, and
picks up his first win in his first game as a coach.
Yeah, a guy who's never been a head coach before. And you got Josh McDaniels on the other side making all this money, and I felt like Jeff Saturday outcoached him. Yeah. I really did. Matt Ryan, talk about Matt Ryan for a moment. I still remember, pretty good career he's had. We'll always remember Matt Ryan for the Super Bowl choke against the Patriots. But Matt Ryan has always seemed to me to be a pretty good, honest, level-headed guy. He's had a nice career. Yeah. There was a moment, and he had a pretty good game yesterday. He put the ball where it needed to be put. He didn't make any mistakes. He played a good, sound football game, and the Colts played a good complementary football game. On both sides, they played pretty well. So I asked Matt Ryan, though, because I had to ask him because it's funny. Matt, when you think of Matt Ryan, you don't think of a guy that really runs for yards. But he had a play yesterday where I think it was like a 25-yard run or something like that.
He's very Tom Brady-esque with his rushing attempts.
It was a play that was funny to watch because he looked so weird running with the football. So I had to ask Matt Ryan in the press conference about that play.
I think somebody had said that was the longest run of your career. Can you just talk a little bit about that play and what you saw out there?
Yeah. Sounds about right, because I'm not used to being kind of in the open field for that long. But a really good play call by Parks. We kind of went with some tempo there, trying to see if we couldn't just, pick something up, get a guy in space. But with that being said, it opened up kind of a running lane to the right, and it was man-to-man coverage. So everybody was kind of flowing to the left and got out. I thought Paris did a good job of kind of getting it started, of just wadding it up. And then Ashton, did a great job of blocking downfield. And we were at the point in the game where, we need to make plays. We need to do something. We didn't need to press or anything like that, but when you get your chance, you got to make them. And it was a great call and a great job by Ashton kind of finishing down the field. And maybe if I was a little faster, I could have scored, but I did the best I could.
I love that honesty.
Maybe if I was a little faster. Great.
He was pumped up, man, after this game. Because the thing about Matt Ryan is, he told us on Friday he didn't even know he was going to start.
Yeah.
He said that Jeff Saturday went up to him earlier in the week, asking him how he was feeling and stuff. Friday afternoon, he didn't even know if he was starting on Sunday. I mean, that's not something that happens very often. It turns out that Saturday made the right decision because Matt Ryan, a guy with the experience. But listen, congratulations to the Colts. I like Jeff Saturday. I wish that team very well. This is about the Raiders and their inability to win football games. This is about a coaching staff that has, in my opinion, lost the locker room. This is a throwaway year, and in the NFL, you don't want to throw away anything. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year. I see nothing to tell me that this team is going to get any better, and it's unfortunate because you got a guy like Jacobs who's having a career year, and you're not winning football games. You got a guy like Max Crosby who is one of the better defensive players in the league. I think that's a fair statement to make.
Absolutely.
You got a guy in Devontae Adams, and we saw some of his brilliance yesterday. Not only the catches that he makes, but extra yardage after catching the football. I mean, this guy is magical on the football field, right? And then I hear some fans saying, bench Derek Carr, get the stars out of there, put other guys in there. Listen, it's $700 a ticket. That's not going to work. You need your stars out there playing because people are paying a lot of money for tickets. So that's not going to happen. Josh McDaniels is also not going to get fired.
Well, let me quickly address that, Brian. Okay, that's the $25,000 question: is what exactly is going to happen with Mark Davis and Josh McDaniels? You just read the clip, right, of what Mark Davis said regarding his head coach. Let me tell you something. All right, he's going to be the head coach until he's not the head coach of the team. So his statement, it doesn't give me any indication whatsoever that he's going to be here for 2 more weeks or 2 more months or another year and a half. That statement there is to give confidence to Josh McDaniels that As of right now, as the owner of the Raiders, Mark Davis, I still think that you're our head coach and you're our guy. But that could absolutely change at any moment, to be quite honest with you. And that's the nature of pro sports as a whole, and it's definitely the nature of the National Football League when it comes to ownership and head coaches, especially with a fan base like this and with and just with an atmosphere like this here in Vegas regarding this locker room and how there's a real possibility that we just discussed in the past 20 minutes that Josh McDaniels has lost this locker room. And if that's the case, then things are going to change regarding Mark Davis' statement. So I'm sorry, I'm not buying into the whole, Mark Davis is all on board with Josh McDaniels for some extended period of time being the head coach here in Las Vegas. Time will tell, and we'll see how things shake out regarding this team the rest of the regular season. But I have no confidence whatsoever that he is somehow solidified in his position as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, like I said, the relationships that I have with people that cover the team every day, what they've told me, I believe them, and I believe Mark Davis. Josh McDaniels is not going anywhere this year, and they could lose every game. He's not going to be fired. Could it happen next year? Absolutely. But I think it's an excuse when the coaching staff doesn't like certain guys on this roster. When you look at this roster top to bottom, they have enough talent to certainly be above 500. I don't think that's a stretch. And you can't be losing to the Saints. You can't be losing to the Jaguars. You can't be losing to the Colts. It's one thing if you're losing to really good football teams, right? It's one thing if you're losing games to the Chiefs. That's different. We're not talking about that. These are 3 teams that they have lost to the last 3 games that are just bad football teams. The Saints are terrible, okay? Jaguars are terrible. And the Colts are not listen.
Look, we were just blasting the Colts, though, in fairness, Brian, but we also just talked about how Matt Ryan played pretty well. Yeah. We also understand that they have Michael Pittman Jr., who's a nice piece. They have Jonathan Taylor, who's one of the better running backs in the National Football League. And by the way, going into this season, people were talking about the Raiders and how they're a team that could have success when it came to going to the playoffs. The Indianapolis Colts were absolutely right there with the Raiders as a team that was discussed, given the fact that they were picking up Matt Ryan and that they had some success last year as a team. They were expected to be a team also that could contend in the AFC. So I think we're being a little bit petty when it comes to calling the Indianapolis Colts some type of sister of the poor football team. That's not the case. And they came into Vegas yesterday and were able to pick up a victory.
Well, in closing, the Colts are not a playoff team.
You aren't. No, that's you don't have a hot take right there. That's an obvious statement.
Of the last 3 games that the Raiders have played, you could make the argument the Colts are the better of the 3, but the Colts should not be beating the Raiders this year.
Well, they are the better of the 3.
On the road against the Raiders. In closing, I will say that did have a couple fun moments yesterday. John Fogerty performed.
CCR.
John Fogerty performed a halftime show, and I had a chance to speak with him for a few minutes after the game. Super cool, nice guy, living legend. I was talking to a living legend. The guy's got such a great songwriter; it's unbelievable. So it was cool meeting John Fogerty yesterday. That was certainly a lot of fun. And moments like that are.
Are you a Creedence Clearwater Revival guy, Brian? Numchuck. He doesn't really strike me as a CCR type of dude.
I love his music. I'll be honest with you. I love his music. The guy's a legend. He's got so many great songs. So that was kind of a cool moment for me. And the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, I was talking to him for a little bit. He's had quite the interesting life himself. He was there as well. And anyway. We'll continue to monitor the Raiders' situation. I believe they're on the road against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos lost. That's their next game. The Broncos lost yesterday, so they're going to be hungry for a win. That ain't an easy place to play, so it doesn't get any easier. This stretch of games for the Raiders, a lot of people thought that this would be a stretch where maybe they can get back in the playoff hunt. Absolutely not the case. It backfired on. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk politics on a national scale. As we know, the Warnock campaign, they're going to be in a runoff, Mr. Warnock against Herschel Walker. Every time I say that, I just can't believe that Herschel Walker is a serious candidate. Anyway, surrogate for the Warnock campaign will be joining us next. Her name is Sarah Riggs Amico, and she also ran for lieutenant governor, so she certainly has a good heartbeat on what is going on in Georgia and in this country when it comes to national politics. Sarah will be joining us next. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
Best of Las Vegas winners each of the last 2 years. Glazed Donuts is a family business. Taste the passion and quality in each delectable handmade donut. Experience amazing fresh donuts at Glazed Donuts, located at 6545 South Fort Apache Road on the southwest corner of Sunset. Glaze is open every day from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you're interested in large orders, please call them at 702-246-2888. Follow Glaze on Facebook and Instagram, where they're showing off all their delicious treats. And check them out at glazedonutslv.com.
All right, welcome back, Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Coming up, hour number 2, former gubernatorial candidate Guy Nohra will be joining us. Talk more of the local political spectrum, unless you're living under a rock. Made national news, of course. Democrats controlling the Senate. Catherine Cortez Masto passing the election-denying Adam Laxalt. Thank God, by the way. But, there are still races out that are slow. It looks like Carrie Lake's going to lose, and then she'll cry fraud, and because she's a nutbag. That's what Carrie Lake is. Someone who I would call a little crazy, but a liar, and somebody who, in my personal opinion, doesn't have a lot of decency. He's lied about his life. He's lied about working for the FBI or police or whatever the hell else he claims he was with.
He's got Dudley Do-Right badges,
yeah.
Brian.
Yeah, he lied about his grades. The guy's lied about everything. Herschel Walker, I can't even believe this is going into a runoff. I can't even believe it's this close. Warnock is somebody that I definitely would vote for if I could, because I think he's a decent man who cares about people, and I agree with a lot of his policies. So the lady joining us right now on the line, she ran for lieutenant governor. She's a surrogate for the Warnock campaign. Sarah Riggs Amico joining us right now on the line. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. How are you? Sarah, can you hear me?
I can. I'm well. It's good to be with y'all. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. All right, so Sarah, I guess this would be my first question for you. Are you surprised that this race is this close, that it's even coming down to a runoff?
Look, I am surprised that anyone votes for Herschel Walker here in Georgia. He's utterly unfit and unqualified to serve in the U.S. Senate. And we have a current senator in the Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, who is not only competent and has delivered for this state time and time again, but is a man of character. So it really is no contest from my perspective which of these two men can better serve the people of our state. But I will say, look, there were only 2 statewide candidates out of 9 here in Georgia on the Republican ticket who couldn't clear 2 million votes. And Herschel Walker was one of them. He was the only statewide Republican candidate who didn't get it done on November 8th. So voters know he's not fit to be in the U.S. Senate. And I think in the end, they're going to reelect Reverend Warnock. He underperformed. Herschel Walker underperformed Governor Kemp, the Republican governor who was just reelected here, by 200,000 votes on election day. And as you mentioned, Herschel Walker is somebody who's lied to the people of Georgia about everything from whether or not he was the valedictorian of his college class. He didn't graduate. The size of the businesses that he ran and created. He said it was one of the largest minority-owned firms in the country. He had 6 employees. He also couldn't even tell us the truth about the number of children he had. So I don't think Georgians are going to send a pathological liar to the U.S. Senate. And that's really the choice. You've got a choice between the man who's a pastor, Raphael Warnock, and an incumbent senator who's delivered the goods for our state, and a pathological liar who was 200,000 votes short of the governor in his own party under him on the ballot on November 8th.
Sarah, it's interesting because, you have so many Republicans out there that are so angry that Fetterman beat Dr. Oz. And I have a lot of respect for Fetterman after having a stroke and having the courage to get up there, on a national stage in a debate. And I think that's one of the reasons why they voted for him, quite frankly. But you hear a lot of Republicans saying, how can you vote for Fetterman? The guy can't even put a sentence together, blah, 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 blah. And have they heard Herschel Walker talk? Have they heard how incoherent he is? What's his excuse? Maybe he got hit too many times in the head as an NFL player. I don't know. How can any Republican argue to a Democrat, how could you vote for Fetterman when they support this man? I don't understand that.
Yeah, first of all, there was a lot of ableism that underpinned all of those comments about Senator-elect Fetterman. And the reality is that his auditory processing will improve, whereas Herschel Walker has shown time and again his character will not. His qualifications for the U.S. Senate will not. So I don't know how anybody can take him seriously. I'm trying to imagine what it would look like on the floor of the Senate for Herschel Walker to get up and address the good air and the bad air in China. It's utterly ridiculous. And I think, he knows, and the Republican Party knows. One of the very first events that Herschel Walker had after the runoff was announced here in Georgia was with Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican from Texas. And Senator Cruz took questions from the press, and Herschel Walker did not. In fact, he's had over 20 events since the runoff was announced where he didn't take a single question from anyone who wasn't an ultra right-wing conservative media. So I think that the admission, tacit admission as it may be, from Herschel Walker is that he can't answer those questions.
Sarah, obviously the dynamic is much different when we're discussing a runoff as opposed to just a general election. You have a situation now where independents are going to have to either make a decision if they're going to vote on one or the other. Talk to us about what that is like, especially in your state there in Georgia. We're here, obviously here in Nevada. We don't have that type of situation. What is that going to be like coming in December, where you're going to have that dynamic between these two men going at it in a runoff type of situation?
Well, look, I'm thrilled to see the reelection of Senator Cortez Masto, but the reality is this Senate seat in Georgia, the cradle of the civil rights movement that is held by the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the pulpit of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., this Senate seat matters independent of what happens in any other state. And it matters whether or not we have a competent senator who can deliver for our state. It matters whether we have someone who can tell the truth to our state. All of these things bode well for Senator Warnock and his reelection. But let's also not forget that in 2021, in the Senate runoffs that delivered the Senate majority to the Biden-Harris administration, Senator Warnock helped build a turnout operation that netted him millions of votes and flipped this state, flipped control of the U.S. Senate. This is something that I think Georgia Democrats are ready to repeat in this runoff election. And candidly, if there's any dampening of enthusiasm in the Georgia runoff for the Senate seat, I suspect it'll be on the part of Republicans. I mean, think about it. They can't take control of the Senate. Why would they want to take all of the risk associated with Herschel Walker, who has proven time and again that he's not ready to serve in the U.S. Senate? Why would they want the headaches? Why would they want him to be front and center, muddling their message? The next time we learn about children he has or abortions he's funded, we've got a saying in Georgia now that we just want our daughters to have the same rights as Herschel Walker's girlfriends.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think we need to send that message to people like Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham. God, when I even bring up their names, I just want to vomit. But anyway, that's another story for another show. If you're just joining us, she is Sarah Riggs Amico. She ran for lieutenant governor herself, and she is a surrogate for the Warnock campaign. They're going to be in a runoff against Herschel Walker. So, Sarah, let me talk to you about just from the national spectrum here. It appears to me that for the most part, the majority of Republicans that lost were election deniers. While there are some election deniers that won their races, no doubt about it, to me, this is a referendum on the alt-right, on the Lauren Boebert types, the Marjorie Taylor Greene. Even though Marjorie Taylor Greene won, to me, the alt-right, middle America did not vote for them, for the most part. Do you believe that, and do you believe that is one of the main reasons? With that and abortion, I think abortion was another huge issue that Republicans seem to take for granted. Do you believe those two issues are one of the main reasons why there wasn't this red wave that came?
Absolutely. It was Roe-vember, right? And look, President Biden said this. He said that democracy was on the ballot, that reproductive freedom was on the ballot, and that voters would understand and get to the ballot box accordingly. And he's right. And look, at every turn, President Biden has been underestimated. He was underestimated when he delivered a bipartisan infrastructure bill that 2 decades worth of presidents from both parties had tried but failed to deliver. He was overperforming when he delivered the CHIPS Act, again, a bipartisan investment in America's competitiveness over the long term in our high-tech sector. He also, managed to get a bipartisan consensus to add Finland and Sweden to NATO. He was also able to get the PAC Act through so we could get health care to our veterans who were exposed to toxins and burn pits during their service. This is a president that consistently exceeds expectations. And so I think having Reverend Warnock on the ballot on December 6th in this runoff election in Georgia will be yet another affirmation that voters are rejecting Trumpism. They are rejecting the alt-right. They are rejecting election deniers, and that they're affirming that women should be able to make the most private, personal healthcare decisions of their lives privately in the privacy of their doctor's office.
So I agree with a lot of what you said there, Sarah. Here's where we might disagree. Again, I'm an independent. If I'm a Democrat, I don't want Joe Biden to run in 2024, not because I think he's a horrible president, but because I think there are probably better candidates out there. Do you believe that Joe Biden, I know we're 2 years away, I know a lot can happen in 2 years, but as a staunch Democrat, do you believe, and are you comfortable with, the fact that Joe Biden may run again in 2024?
Look, similar to the abortion conversation, this is a private, personal decision the president and his family will make. And if he runs again, I think he will have a tremendous amount of support. Like I said, this is a president that's over-delivered time and again on all of the issues that matter, whether it was the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act. Remember, $1,400 checks in the pockets of Georgians in the depths of the pandemic when they really needed it most. Folks are going to remember that. They're going to remember his efforts on student loan relief. I think he's going to be rewarded, and I think that he'll make that decision. He'll make it in a way that's the right one for him and his family. But if you're asking whether I'd sign up for 4 more years of that kind of overperformance with a 50-50 Senate, hell yeah, I would.
If it was your decision, who would you choose on the left if they had to run for president tomorrow? I'm just curious. Can you name me a few names besides Joe Biden? Who are some people that you would support on a national level that you think on the left today would be a great president?
We've got a deep bench, right? I mean, you saw that in the 2020 primary. There are so many good and talented people waiting in the wings in the Democratic Party. We're going to have a deep bench for a very long time. And I think part of the calculus and the decision for the president will obviously be taking that into account. And let's not forget, because this is a personal pet peeve for me. We have the first woman, first Black woman, first Asian American woman, first woman ever elected to national office in Vice President Kamala Harris. And the reality is, if this were a white male vice president and the president didn't run for reelection, I'm not sure that everybody would be circling the wagons trying to pick out who was going to be the front runner. We've got a good and competent history-making vice president in Kamala Harris, and she's going to be a force for years.
Do you believe Kamala Harris would defeat Donald Trump?
I believe any Democrat is going to defeat Donald Trump. Look, Republicans just defeated Donald Trump, right? Republicans wouldn't even vote for his picks in this election. The biggest loser in the 2022 elections by far was not even on the ballot, and it was Donald Trump.
I agree with that 100%. Yep.
Sarah, I'd have to concur with you. To be very frank and be very candid, I think the idea of Herschel Walker being in the United States Senate is one of the more absurd and preposterous notions that I can think of. I've mentioned this to Brian numerous times on the show as the resident Democrat on the show who appears weekly. I don't think that Herschel Walker is qualified to run a Waffle House, much less be sent to Washington, D.C. to make serious decisions that serious people need to make. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And so, yes, I am hopeful that Georgians will find a way to handle their business there in your great state and re-elect Raphael Warnock to the United States Senate. And I think that's something that would be beneficial, not just to Georgians, but to Americans as a whole.
I'm confident that's exactly what you'll see. Georgians know what's best for our state. This is a state full of hardworking, practical, good people who have good values, and none of that aligns with electing Herschel Walker. That all aligns with re-electing Senator Raphael Warnock to the U.S. Senate.
So, Sarah, as a independent, when people ask me, what do you think Democrats stand for? I think I have a pretty good idea, right? Obviously, universal health care. Gun control is another issue that's talked about all the time. Talking against voter suppression, wanting to get the vote out, constantly talking about helping the poor, helping the needy, talking constantly about legalization of not just gay marriage, which is legal pretty much everywhere anyway, but the negative talk against transgenders, talking about all those types of issues and giving the woman a right to choose. If people ask me what Democrats stand for, that's pretty much, that hasn't really changed either. But when people ask me what do Republicans stand for, I'm going to be honest with you. I pretty much have no idea. I don't know what they stand for. They say they stand for freedom.
Owning the libs, Brian.
Yeah,
That's what they stand
yet they
for.
want to tell a woman what to do with their body. Secure the border. So what are your solutions? Send people to Martha's Vineyard? Like I used to be able to answer that question, Sarah, 10 years ago. I had a pretty good understanding of what Republicans stood for, and some of which I supported. I have absolutely no idea what Republicans stand for these days. Do you? Because I don't.
I think they're the perfect explanation of one of my favorite sayings, which is, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And the Republican Party today stands for nothing, and they've fallen for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Sarah, 150%. When Warnock, and I do believe he's going to win this runoff, when he does, what are the first things he wants to do when he's in office?
I think they've got a lot of things to do still in the lame duck session, right? Going into the rest of the year. Certainly the Electoral Count Act. They've got the debt ceiling conversation. I think they've got the votes, or they soon will have the votes, to codify marriage equality. I think Justice Clarence Thomas and his concurrence to the Dobbs decisions put that in question. And that's terrifying to not just families in the LGBTQIA community, but to families like mine who are allies. And I think they've got a lot to do. I still think, remember, you had a long list of all the things that make me proud to be a Democrat. And for what it's worth, I wasn't always a Democrat. 20 years ago, I would have been a Republican. So I'm a capitalist. I'm a Harvard MBA, a business owner. I run a trucking company. So I understand what it means to make a payroll. And I think that Democrats also stand for democracy, for the stability in our democratic institutions, and to prevent the erosion that the extreme right wing, the assault that they've had in everything from the right to vote to the January 6th insurrection. And remember, our economy is deeply tied to the stability of those democratic institutions as well. So I think we've got a lot going for us. And as a business owner right now, I've got to say it would be hard to vote for anyone outside of the Democratic Party. This is the party that's tackling a lot of the issues that matters in our economy as well. So, from my perspective, there's never been a starker contrast between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party than there is right now, particularly on that question of democracy. And I think that's what you saw time and again. Not a single election denier won a Secretary of State race anywhere in this country, whether they were an incumbent or a challenger. If they were an election denier running to be the chief administration officer for elections, the Secretary of State, they lost. That is an extremely loud renunciation of Trumpism and of everything we saw culminating on January 6th.
Sarah, we had that situation obviously here in Nevada with Jim Marchand, who was running on the Republican side as well, too. Now, look, you talked about the deep bench when it comes to Democrats. One of those people that I think is instrumental when it comes to Democrats and getting out the vote is in your state, and that's Sarah. Of course, I'm talking about Abrams. She was outstanding, despite the fact that Brian Kemp was able to win re-election. Talk about the impact that she's had, particularly with respect to voter rights, and where you think she stands as far as her place in the Democratic Party moving forward from here on out.
Look, Stacey's been a star for a long time, and she's still a star. She sailed into some pretty strong, insurmountable headwinds last week, and it's heartbreaking for those of us who know her. As you know, I ran on the ticket with her as her nominee for lieutenant governor in 2018. So I know her well. I consider her a friend, and I don't think we've seen the last of her. The great thing about Stacey, and we really saw this after the 2018 election, is she didn't need a title or an office to do the right thing. She set out right after a devastating loss to tackle voting rights, not just in Georgia, for the whole country. And remember, a lot of this infrastructure for organizing that's been done by incredible organizations here in Georgia, specifically Black-led organizations, that really laid the foundation for flipping the state in 2020 for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and for picking up those 2 Senate seats in January 5th, 2021. So Stacey was an integral part of that. She really led this effort to speak to infrequent voters, to speak to people in marginalized communities who, in a state that is as gerrymandered as Georgia is, a lot of times feel unseen, unheard, and unvalued by the Republicans that have controlled the state for the last 2 decades. Stacey spoke to them. And, when we ran in 2018, we went everywhere and talked to everyone. Nothing was off the table. You didn't have to agree with us on anything. And I think you're going to continue to see that kind of engagement from her going forward in whatever capacity she chooses. The one thing she will not lack for is options. And I'm devastated she won't be our next governor. But I'm so proud of the campaign she won and of the way that she inspired people to think about what the future can look like when everyone has equal access to that American dream, to opportunity, to economic stability and justice and empowerment. These are really important issues that we're going to have to continue to talk about, not just in Georgia, but around the country until we get it right.
No doubt. Sarah, it's been a pleasure having you on. I really do appreciate your time. And hopefully if Warnock does win, which I believe he will in the runoff, we'd love to have you on again down the road. And thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. Good time talking to you guys.
Thank you very much. That is Sarah Riggs Amico, ran for lieutenant governor herself, as she just mentioned, and a surrogate for the Warnock campaign. And I can tell you right now, I do believe Warnock's going to win in a runoff. And
we hope he does, right, Brian? Because, look, we need to put Joe Manchin on notice, right? Joe Manchin needs to understand that he doesn't have, the power that he has, essentially, for the past, for the past 3-4 years. So that it's still absolutely instrumental, that race there in Georgia.
So, Chris, before we go to break, and I heard a rumor that we might be able to get Adam Laxalt at the top of the hour. That's yet to be determined, but it's a possibility. I want to explain to the Retrumplicans out there what the difference is today in general between a Republican and a Democrat. And I'm going to use our current governor, Steve Sisolak, as an example. As many of you know, Republican Joe Lombardo will be our next governor in the great state of Nevada. So what did Steve Sisolak do when he realized, most likely, he wasn't going to win? Well, the first thing he did was call Joe Lombardo and concede. Here's what Steve Sisolak said before every vote was even counted. He said, quote, While votes are still coming in and we need every ballot tallied and every voice heard, it appears we will fall a percentage point or so short of winning. He said he reached out to Sheriff Lombardo, and he said, that's why I reached out to the sheriff to wish him success and say if he needed any help, he would be there for him. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's what somebody with some dignity does. That's what somebody with some class does. When they don't say that the election was stolen, and if you notice, Steve Sisolak didn't mention anything like that. In fact, he praised the election process, and he talked about how important democracy was, and he said the people have spoken. He put ego aside, and Steve Sisolak showed why I voted for him. And even though he lost, and I don't think the sky is going to fall because Joe Lombardo is going to be our governor, because he's not an alt-right election denier. I don't agree with everything he stands for. Things are going to be okay in the state of Nevada. Steve Sisolak showed class and he showed dignity. And unlike the Adam Laxalts and the Kerry Lakes and the election-denying idiot buffoons on the right that are embarrassing themselves and they are embarrassing this country, Steve Sisolak showed that he is a man of class and he is a man of dignity. And even if you don't agree with everything Steve Sisolak stands for or everything he does, I know there's a lot of you out there, the voters have spoken. And by the way, I'm one of them. I didn't agree with everything Steve Sisolak did. The man in the most important hour showed who he is. He is a man of class, and he showed class in defeat.
And right now, Brian, there are numerous Republicans and the MAGA crowd and Retrumplicans out there that are already making the decision not to concede in elections that they're about to lose or that they have already lost. So that dynamic is clear. We see that. You pointed out, it's not just Steve Sisolak in Nevada. There hasn't been one Democratic candidate out there that has been claiming election fraud or claiming that something nefarious happened when it came to election 2022 across the board, despite the fact that, yes, there's been issues regarding time frames across the country in certain states where they've had issues as far as counting votes and all of this. There haven't been people on the left that have come out and been, ultra critical to a point where they're trying to bring in some type of election fraud in the situation. It's been everybody on the right. Yeah. It's been people on the right that have been doing that. So it's not surprising.
And by the
whatsoever.
way, if you have any problem with Kerry Lake's opponent being the Secretary of State, then you need to have the same issues with Kemp. But back, when Kemp was in charge of things, I didn't hear Republicans complaining about that. But anyway, you're right. Every Democrat, I haven't seen one that have been attacking democracy or saying that the Republicans cheated. I was just using Steve Sisolak as one of many examples that I could use. So you're absolutely right.
And quickly to the point you made about Joe Lombardo, look, he's not a fiery guy as far as someone who incites rhetoric, right? He's not that type of person. No. So yes, you're 100% correct. Even as a Democrat, the sky's not falling. The state of Nevada is going to be just fine with Joe Lombardo as the governor. Are there people that are his supporters that can tend to be fiery and incite rhetoric? Absolutely. But as far as Joe Lombardo is concerned, I don't have the concerns that many people would have.
Guy Nohra, who ran for governor, did say that the state's now going to come back. So, Chris, you'll be able to talk to him about that. We'll take a quick break. I heard we might have Adam Laxalt on the other side of the break. If that does happen, I'll be shocked. But anyway, I want to tell you guys about my good friends at Sahara West Urgent and Primary Care. They're located at Sahara and Jones, right down the street from the station here. No appointment necessary, but you can give them a call at 702-248-0554. I got the old testosterone therapy there, and I got to tell you, it works wonders. I was in and out of there in 20 minutes. Most urgent cares, you got to wait hours. Not the case at this place. They really take care of people there. Please check them out. Sahara West Urgent and Primary Care, and tell them I sent you. Check them out on website as well, SaharaWestUrgentCare.com. All right, we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, I think it was probably not a really good turnout and not a lot of W's for Republicans, especially locally here in the state of Nevada. I'll name you those Republicans that need tissues this morning when we come back. And by the way, for the record, I did vote for a few Republicans who lost. I'll talk about that as well. We'll take a quick break. He's Chris Vereen. I'm Brian Shapiro. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP. Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement, and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Bremen Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Tomorrow, November 15th, and that means it's the 15th annual Ping Pong Palooza at Sapphire. It's all to raise money for the Prostate Foundation. Minimum up to 4 people per team. 1 female must be on your team. Table tennis tournament. I'm looking forward to that. A $200 donation per team also includes a free drink and a buffet. And the great thing is 100% of the proceeds go for charity. Please check it out. SapphireProstateFoundation.org/ping pong. I will be there.
Nunchuck, Shapiro's got a serious ping pong game. I will concede to that. The kid can play in the tables.
I was just going to say,
he's got talent.
Do you have your team picked out yet?
Yeah, unfortunately I do, and I'm not too high on the team. I'll leave it at that. I'm not too high on the skills of the team that will be participating with me. But
you're already bagging on your squad before the season goes down?
Yeah.
Is a member in this room?
No, but I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
But anyway, check it out.
I can play a little table tennis. This kid's got some skills.
I'm pretty sure you can.
I wouldn't be considered a scrub by any stretch.
Is if it's anything compared to the way Chris shoots a basketball, then I'd have some serious questions. That's all I'm going to say.
I've been out of practice for a while, my friend. You were not around during the 1992-93 season at Framingham State where I was drilling threes like it was my job. So yes, but I've been out of practice.
All right.
Hey Shep,
my basketball
phone call.
Is not good.
We got a phone call?
We got a phone call.
Oh,
what do you mean we have a phone call?
We have a phone call.
Is it Adam Laxalt?
It is.
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just announce it. Okay. So listen, Adam Laxalt at times has refused to do this show, but I am very honored and privileged. I believe we have Adam Laxalt on the line with us right now. Mr. Laxalt, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a very difficult morning for you. Oh boy, that's very unfortunate. Mr. Laxalt, will you be running again, sir? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Laxalt. Well, he's obviously, he sounds a little bit like Derek Carr at the press conference over the weekend. All right, Mr. Laxalt, we'll give you another time to come on. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Oh, I apologize. Well, Mr. Laxalt, don't worry, it'll be okay. You'll still be able to steal from pharmaceuticals. It's all right. All right, obviously we can't talk to Adam. He's too troubled. Mr. Laxalt, of course, going down, losing to Catherine Cortez Masto. By the way, he still hasn't conceded.
No.
He still hasn't reached out to the Masto campaign because Adam Laxalt is a scumbag. That's why. Adam, you're a scumbag. You're a loser. Get off my show.
Anyway. So, Brian, can we talk about the appearance of your statuesque physique on social media yesterday when you had an outstanding comedic / sometimes serious statement regarding some of the candidates that lost their races on Tuesday and beyond here in Nevada? It was Numchuck. I think I'm fair to say it was a little different, wasn't it? His display on social media.
It was a little hostage-esque.
It was a little weirdish in that you did have some type of naked hostage-esque kind of thing going on with
first of all,
that post that you had yesterday.
I wasn't naked. I was shirtless. That's number one. Number two, I find it really weird that the first thing you think about when you watch a video of me is me possibly being naked. I find that a little off-putting. Number two.
Well, it wasn't a big
number
mystery.
Three,
it was the only thing that I saw. First of all, we didn't know if you weren't naked or not. All we saw is nakedness.
Let me tell you something. If I ever see you in a video with your shirt off, the first thing that's not going to enter my mind is, boy, I wonder if Chris is naked. So I find that to be a little strange.
Well, I wasn't thinking about it in a way that was flattering by any stretch of the imagination, right? I wasn't looking at it like that.
Let me be very clear.
I was looking at it as if it was just a little bit strange.
Yeah,
that's all.
Way to backtrack.
That's all it is. I'm not backtracking. I'm being honest about the situation.
If I see a video of Jessica Alba in a very sexy outfit, or I'm thinking to myself, geez, I wonder if she's naked, I think that's a normal thing for a straight man to think about. But I find it weird that
it's not. It's an observation of what was on the World Wide Web.
Okay.
It was you with nothing on screen. Okay. We don't know if you have on shorts or whatever.
Okay. Well, you used to.
You could have just got out of the shower for all we know. We don't know.
For the answer,
it was.
I'll give you a little.
It was a tad bit awkward.
I'll give you a little. Well, you're making it awkward. I'll give you.
Well, make it awkward. It's actually very hilarious to me right now. And
I'll give you a little bit of context. I woke up. Okay.
Yes.
And when I woke up, I looked at my phone and I had a couple messages that said, "Hey, we want to hear from you. Will you tell us your thoughts on the elections? Mastel won, blah 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 blah." I said, "Okay." So I thought it'd be kind of funny to do it right in bed and put a little video out there. And I'm glad you were thinking that way.
It was funny.
I got you
it was
thinking.
very humorous. Yes,
I'm
I
glad,
will say that.
I'm glad I got you thinking. Anyway, I'm glad. Anyway, so on the local level, I was wrong about the gubernatorial election. I thought that Steve Sisolak was going to win. I was worried about the Laxalt, Catherine Cortez Mastow race. I really was. That was the one race where I was really concerned about. And, I was right. I mean, I said it was going to be very close and Mastow would edge it out. She did. In the early part of the election day, Jim Marchant had a nice lead. He ended up losing, thank God. Very few Republicans won in this state. And I think if you ask most Democrats and you said to them, listen, you're not going to win, Sisolak's not going to win re-election, but you're going to win all the other key races, they would have taken that. There's no question. And the Democrats have now taken the Senate back. And now the situation and the, I guess, conversation turns to Donald Trump. Accountability. There are a lot of Republicans out there, even the Josh Hawleys of the world, of all people, that are saying, hey, it's time to move on, basically. But I don't think Donald Trump is going to go down that easily. He is going to announce that he is going to be running for president in 2024. I could see Kerry Lake being his running mate. And it'll be interesting to see how the Republican Party responds to this. Now, the usuals, like the Ted Cruzes of the world, the Marco Rubios, and the ass kissers, well, obviously, so Tom Cotton's the ass kisser. They'll all support Donald Trump. But it'll be interesting to see what the party does from here on out. I know from a local standpoint, I'm very proud of this state. I'm very proud of the fact that, for the most part, even if you disagree with their policies, most reasonable people won. I'm not a big Joe Lombardo fan. I don't think he was a good sheriff. I've given my support to Kevin McMahill, who I think will be a very good sheriff. He's a good man, Republican, good guy. Sky's not going to fall. But the most important race to me was the Adam Laxalt, Catherine Cortez race, and Secretary of State. Jim Marchant losing is a big deal because if Jim Marchant won, this state would be in a lot of trouble. Our democracy would be on the line. Same thing with Adam Laxalt. Adam Laxalt and Jim Marchant represent despicable human beings, election-denying fools that have no business being in office. And while I'm also happy that Sigal Chattah lost, and she got completely embarrassed, by the way, and then the staunch Trump Republicans lost. Those who would not admit that Joe Biden was a free and fair elected president Sam Peters. Now, if you don't know who Sam Peters is, Sam Peters ran against Stephen Horsford. And Sam Peters in radio commercials, which I pointed out immediately, said, "Let's go Brandon" in his commercials, which we all know what that means. It means F Joe Biden. And I called him out immediately for that, and others did as well, because it was despicable, it was disgusting, and it sets a horrible example for any type of human being that is involved in politics or anybody even listening to stuff like that. Now, eventually he took that radio spot down, but it goes to show you the type of person that Sam Peters is. And even with Stephen Horsford's issues at home, which, by the way, I don't want to get involved with because I don't think that affects him in his job. But even with all those issues and his own wife calling him out on social media, Stephen Horsford won. And by the way, he won handily. And the moderates and the independents did not vote for Sam Peters because he is a right-wing nut and another election denier. Now, he'll say he's not an election denier. It's interesting how these right-wing buffoons answer questions, right? I'll give you an example, Chris. You talk to some of these right-wingers out there. Do you believe Joe Biden is a free and fair elected president? Joe Biden is our president. No, that's not the question, idiot. The question isn't whether Joe Biden's our president. Obviously, he's our president, idiot. That's not the question. The question is he a free and fair elected president? Obviously, the answer is yes. But these right-wing denying fools like Mark Robertson, who came in this show and embarrassed himself. Tina Titus was in studio as well. Robertson embarrassed himself on this show. Sam Peters embarrassed himself in that debate, the second debate, because they won't answer that question. These candidates still won't answer. Maybe moving forward they learned a lesson. I say maybe because I don't know. Maybe they learned a lesson. Election deniers are not going to win. Yes, there are some that did across the country, but in the big races, as Sarah just pointed out last segment, all Secretary of State positions across the country, not one election denier won. That is a big deal for democracy. That is a win, not just for Democrats. It is a win for the country and for democracy. And until you Republicans start to understand that, things are not going to change in your party, period.
What can be pointed out by the results of the 2022 midterms, Brian, is that Nevada is a unique state in that we had basically a blue wave across the board when it came to House seats and when it came to our Senate seat, and pretty much everything else except for governor, lieutenant governor, and controller in the state, right? And I think, and we're going to talk to Guy Nohra, the former gubernatorial candidate, later on in the show, as to reasons why Steve Sisolak is no longer going to be the governor here in Nevada. I have my own theories and reasons behind it. I'm sure you do, and he does as well.
Sure.
And it'll be interesting. But to go back to what you talked about regarding the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, and what's about to transpire between him and the Republican Party is going to be fascinating to watch. Johnny Lane on our Facebook feed chimes in, says it's going to be a couple of years actually, of MAGAs and Republicans firing Scud missiles at each other across the board. Because Donald Trump is someone who is not a Republican. I've said this many times. He is a guy who is a transactional individual who happened to have an R next to his name and garnered support from the MAGA crowd and Republicans because of what they could do with him in office. But he is absolutely willing, Brian Shapiro. He is absolutely willing to burn the house down. And if the Republican Party does go a direction where they lean towards, say, a Ron DeSantis, Josh Hawley ticket, or a Ron DeSantis and name your favorite Republican of the month ticket, and decide to go that direction, and Donald Trump does end up running as an independent with a Kerry Lake or whoever it is he decides to run with, obviously, that's a major issue for Republicans, and it's going to destroy them in any general election. So a lot of us Democrats are sitting back and are going to kind of wait and see how that all shakes out. But again, Donald Trump is not somebody that is looking out for the Republican Party in any way, shape, or form. He's not looking out for America. He's looking out for his backside and what he thinks his prospects are of continuing a political career at all. When
By the way,
presidential politics.
A race that I didn't even bring up.
Yeah.
Michelle Fiore lost as well, another Trumping idiot clown.
Everybody lost, right? Except for lieutenant governor, and controller.
So I told Michelle, I texted her, and I said, Michelle, maybe putting underwear on your face during a global pandemic when people are dying every day, maybe that's not the best way to go. Maybe might want to change your style.
Giving some sound advice to Michelle as far as moving forward with her political aspirations, Brian.
Let me be very clear. Michelle Fiore, you are a complete embarrassment to the state. You are an idiot. Same thing with Adam Laxalt and Jim Marchant. You guys are despicable people. You really are. Sigel Chadha saying that she wanted her opponent to hang from a crane. I mean, you all deserve to lose. You're all buffoons. Steve Sisolak did not run a great campaign. He wasn't great with the media. His messaging wasn't great. I don't think he's this corrupt person that everybody wants to make him out to be. I do believe he was not perfect and he made some mistakes during the pandemic, but make no mistake about it. If not for the pandemic, Steve Sisolak would still be our governor. He had to make very, very difficult decisions. I back him on those decisions, and a lot of people out there that lost their businesses had to shut down. They want to blame Steve Sisolak for that. Blame the pandemic. Blame the Wuhan lab. It wasn't Steve Sisolak's fault. Doesn't mean he was perfect. I don't agree with all of his decisions.
I think you're absolutely right, though, Brian. I think that is exactly why Steve Sisolak is not the governor of Nevada today. It has everything to do with the pandemic and individuals here in Nevada, in this state, which is obviously very gaming heavy, right? Gaming is our major industry. And he had the back of the major casinos, right? When it came to lockdowns, when it came to procedures and doing that, he was absolutely in the back pocket of the bigger casinos. But when you know what he wasn't in the back pocket of? He wasn't looking out for the small businesses, right? He wasn't the small bars, the small restaurants, the small businesses in Nevada. And I think eventually that ended up costing him. Now, we can get into the discussion with Guy Nohra and yourself regarding approach to a pandemic, right? And is there a Republican or Democratic way to handle a pandemic? I would argue absolutely not. And there is no question that Steve Sisolak and every governor across the country made mistakes and made the right move in certain situations regarding the pandemic. But that, to me, that's, in my personal opinion, I'm agreeing with you. I think it was absolutely because of the pandemic and because of some of the decisions he made that cost him the gubernatorial race.
Mark this down, Numchuck. Mark this down at 1:16 p.m. on a Monday. Chris Wynn agrees with me on something. 100%.
I do. It's a shocker.
Mark it down, please.
Mark it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, please mark it down right on the console. No, but I do have some concerns with Joe Lombardo. Not the same concerns that I would have for a freak show like Jim Marchant or Michelle Fiore or these nutbags. I don't think Joe Lombardo was a very good sheriff. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
In a leadership position, he always seemed to take the side of his officers, even when wrongdoing was clearly evident. I can go to the Jorge Gomez shooting, but I can go back to when I was a reporter, CBS, and we had officer-involved shootings. Most were justified, but there were some that were not. And he didn't hold officers to account. I'm worried, based on his behavior as sheriff, that he will not hold people to account as governor that work for him. That can't happen. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I'll tell you something else that is very concerning. He is very combative with certain members of the media. He refused to do this show. I had Steve Sisolak on this show. He doesn't like being challenged on anything. And that's a big concern to me. Now, nobody likes to be challenged, but some people are willing to get into the fire and be challenged. Joe Lombardo doesn't seem to be one of those people. And here's what really, a friend of mine, Stephen Klobuchar, Democrat billionaire, he had that text thread with Joe Lombardo. And Joe Lombardo texts him and says, because he doesn't like the Las Vegas Sun, he wants to shut down the newspaper because they write bad articles about him, at least allegedly what he claims. And I said to myself, that is dictatorship. And if members of that's a page from the Ron DeSantis playbook. If people in the media like myself or newspaper outlets hold Joe Lombardo accountable and criticize him, I don't want him to respond by saying, oh, we got to get that show off the air. We got to get Shapiro off the air. We got to get that newspaper. And that's concerning to me because that's dictatorship stuff. You're going to be the next governor of the state of Nevada. You better not have that attitude. You better face the music. And you better realize that there are going to be people in the media that are going to criticize you. There are going to be people, pundits, that are going to chastise you. You have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, we saw Sisolak, that guy who, I'm not even going to mention his name because he's not alive anymore, but the guy that accosted Sisolak and his wife and his daughter at a restaurant. I don't want that to happen to Lombardo. It could, but I don't want that to happen. But Lombardo has to understand that there's going to be people in the state that are not going to like him very much. And he's going to have to be able to face the music and be able to combat that with honesty. And I'm worried that Joe Lombardo's not going to do that.
I hope that he doesn't take a Donald Trump type trait where he tries to be standoffish, right, to Nevadans that don't necessarily agree with Joe when it comes to his politics. I will say this. You and I just talked about this about 20, 25 minutes ago regarding Joe Lombardo, and both of us thinking that the sky is not falling. It's not going to be, necessarily a horrible thing that Joe Lombardo is going to be governing the state. And the reason why, Brian, is because there's going to be a firewall in Carson City. This is a state that is very Democrat heavy when it comes to the public servants. They're in Carson City. Democrats are all over the place. So there's going to be checks and balances regarding Joe Lombardo and his governorship. So it isn't going to be just Joe going out there, fly by to the seat of his pants, doing whatever he wants in what you described as dictatorish moves across the board. It's not going to be able to happen just from a logistics standpoint because there's just too many Democrats in charge here in Nevada. So, again, you alluded to his personality. He's not a guy that's necessarily standoffish. He's not someone that likes to engage in fiery debates or fiery interactions or arguments with people, and I would suspect that that's the way he's going to govern. So again, I reiterate, it's going to be much like when Brian Sandoval is in office here in Nevada, right?
You're doing it with your hands again.
You understand what I'm saying? It's going to be that type. I think it's going to be that type of situation, bro. I think it's going to be that type of situation, bro.
I think so too.
Where Joe Lombardo, look, he is a Republican, and I actually think he's a real Republican, right? So, and has Republican ideals and has an ideology that would be along the lines of a conservative. But at the same time, I also think he's somebody that possibly can get work done with Democrats. And I would like to take a glass half full approach to what his governorship's going to be here in the state of Nevada.
Do I hear that, is Adam Laxalt flooding our phone lines again? I thought I told Laxalt that we'll have to talk to him at another time. All right, Mr. Laxalt, are you ready to answer some questions? Oh, jeez. That's too bad. All right, well, Mr. Laxalt, I hope you have a better day. Oh boy, he's really having a rough morning. That's unfortunate. Or is that Jim Marchant? I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Laxalt. Appreciate it. Anyway, we'll open up the phone lines if you're not Adam Laxalt. 702-221-7283. And again, if you want to join the conversation, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Talking about the elections here locally, nationally, your thoughts on Laxalt going down, crying like a baby. Your thoughts on Jim Marchant going down, Michelle Fiore going down, Sigal Chattah going down, all the nutbags in this great state of Nevada going down. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Joey Gilbert is on social media crying foul and saying the Democrats always seem to win when it takes so long for the votes to come in. By the way, Kerry Lake's going to go down too. It appears as though the other dirtbag and Lauren Boebert, that's going to probably be a runoff to a Democrat that nobody's ever heard of before in a Republican district. Is that not? If that's not telling, I don't really know what is. But all the big names that are right-wing hacks, morons, certainly in the big races in this state, went down. And pretty much, for the most part, that's what happened nationally. I'm disappointed that Marjorie Taylor Greene won. But would you like to hear, Chris, a little bit of Marjorie Taylor Greene gossip?
I always would, of course.
Yeah, 8-Toe Green. Here's what happened with her. So DailyMail.com, they do some good stuff. They caught Marjorie Taylor Greene and right-wing reporter, who a complete fool, this guy, Brian Glenn, in the last couple days, schmoozing at rallies, dining at very expensive restaurants, and he drove to her Georgia home with a suitcase in her SUV last week, but he insisted he was never there, even though Daily Mail has pictures of him there at the house. Now, listen, she's recently divorced, and I guess this guy just divorced his wife 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to say that there is definitely a strong possibility that they have had a little bit of an affair going for quite some time. The number to call, 702-221-7283. Let's go to John. John, what's going on?
Hey, John.
Hey, man.
What's up, John?
What's going down?
Brian, I got to tell you, man, I saw the video on TikTok. I was a little concerned, too.
Thank you very much, John. Chiming in with some reasonable take, baby.
Did I put that on TikTok? I don't even know.
You put it all over social media. You act like it was like...
I still want to play it right now. You
John,
no
that's
idea.
what's funny, right, John, is that he's kind of toning it down like it was, I just happened to roll out of bed and decided to throw this on here. I'm like... I'm like, bro, okay, because I say that all the time. I'm like, Brian, this goes all over social media, right? You're like,
you guys just like my sexy physique. All right, John, what else? Besides criticizing my video, what else you got for me?
I got a comment and then a question.
Okay, fair enough.
My comment is, I just got back from Costco, buddies. I bought the, I think it was 44-pack box of popcorn, because get your popcorn ready, boys and girls. It's about to be fun time for Democrats. The Republican Party's about to implode. Donnie Boy's going to have the mother of all temper tantrums. Kerry Lake's going to be affixed to his buttocks, along with Adam Crybaby Laxalt. It's about to get fun. All the anxiety that we've experienced over the past 6 years, it's about to come to an end, and Democrats are, get your popcorn, baby. It's going to be fun.
Well, I don't disagree with you. What was your question, my friend?
Who's a bigger baby? Who's more pathetic human being? Danny Tarkanian or Adam Laxalt?
Boy, that's a tough one, man.
I got to go with Danny Tarkanian.
I
think
that's a tough one.
That's my vote right there.
Well, here's what I will say, though, about Danny Tarkanian, and this was before, he didn't really lose any races during the Trump, I guess you can call it election-denying era. I don't know if Danny would be doing that. I think what's even a more important question is, Laxalt's an election-denying idiot. And I think that's what's more serious. Who's the biggest crybaby?
But Danny Tarkanian, what is he running for? Like, he was running for a Congress in the suburbs of Searchlight, Nevada, right, John? I mean, look, it's not like Danny Tarkanian was running for any significant
Brian, you kind of nailed it, Brian. Adam's more devious. He's more of a. Danny's more of just a. Look, they're both men who've spent their entire lives trying to suck off their last names because their parents were there.
Here's one thing, though. I bet you Adam Laxalt won't move 7 or 8 hours away to a city with 3,000 people so he can finally win an election.
Right. He's more skilled than that.
Yeah.
But I think didn't Tarkanian make a lot of money suing somebody for defamation after he lost one?
I don't know. He's never sued me, and I can tell you right now, Danny Tarkanian is a complete buffoon. Although I will give his wife a little bit of credit. You know why? Because his wife endorsed Catherine Cortez Masto. So I have to give her a little bit of credit. That made a difference. Don't get me wrong. This is a woman who used to be the head of the Republican Party, right? She was in Michael McDonald's seat. And when you have a staunch Republican like that who's campaigning with a Democrat, that made a difference. So I give her credit.
That's basically like Adam Laxalt's family members not voting for him and being in his camp, right, John?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, man. Wake up, MAGA nuts. I mean, it's all fraud. It's all baloney. If you think Donald Trump cares about you uneducated white working class person, you're totally.
By the way, Donald Trump is now putting all the blame on Mitch McConnell, and he was asked in an interview if Republicans win, he wants full credit, and if Republicans lose, it's not his fault. And now he's putting all the blame on Mitch McConnell. Let me tell you something, Mitch McConnell. I am not defending him, but in this instance, this is not Mitch McConnell's fault. This is mainly.
I'll tell you what. He's got an obvious excuse right in front of him, and I can't believe he hasn't been beating this drum nonstop since the election.
I actually think it's Barron Trump's fault. I'll put it on him.
It's the abortion issue.
No question.
I thought he'd be beating that drum 24 hours a day. He just hasn't played that card.
Well, he's definitely beating a drum, but not that drum. Last time he slept in the same bed of Melania Trump, I think it's been a very, very long time. But anyway,
did you hear Bill Maher on Friday?
Well, what did he say on Friday?
What's the segment at the end there?
Did he recant his statements from a week ago, John? Because a week ago it was the sky is falling, the Republicans are taking over everything. Didn't he?
Yeah. New rules. His final new rule. Yeah. That's his main commentary.
Right.
It was hilarious. It was who is doing Donald Trump, because we know it's not Melania. We know he's a scumdog. He's been accused by 27 women of sexual assault. He's admitted on tape that he's a serial sexual assaulter. Who's having sex with Donald Trump?
I would say possibly Matt Gaetz.
I got to admit, I would file this under the I could really give a damn segment as far as who's having relations with the former president.
Maybe Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, maybe Jim Jordan,
Lindsey Graham,
Lauren Boebert. I don't know.
It might be Lindsey Graham.
Ivanka.
Yeah.
Ivanka. Well, I'm not going to go that far, but I wouldn't put it past the Trump family. Anyway, John, good to hear from you, my friend. Appreciate
thanks, John.
Yes, thank you.
Quick note, Brian, from the PTL text line, a friend of the show, Mark Nilsson, a pillar of the hospitality community, chimes in regarding Steve Sisolak. He says, Governor Steve Sisolak lost because he followed California's COVID policies. P.S. We are a hospitality-run economy. I would counter that quickly, Brian, by saying he did it because he was following Nevada COVID policies.
By the way, Gavin Newsom, last I checked, Gavin Newsom is still the governor of California.
Exactly, yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense at all.
Yes, we are neighbors to California. We don't follow exactly what they do.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, man who ran for governor in the great state of Nevada, Guy Nohra, will be joining us next. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams and treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554. All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Tomorrow on the show, we plan on having UNLV head basketball coach Kevin Kruger, 24th ranked team in the country, Dayton, coming to town. And also the guys from Veterans in Politics will be joining us in studio tomorrow. But I wanted to get a Republican perspective. We got the left's perspective with Sarah on the elections. And the guy joining me on the line right now, a really nice guy and somebody who ran for office here for governor. He's been in studio before, a very successful businessman. He came to this country and made a lot of money, and I give him all the credit for that, and he ran for governor. Of course, I'm talking about Guy Nohra, who joins us right now on the line. Guy, I appreciate you coming on with us. How are you?
Good. Nice to be with you again, and I assume I'm probably the only person on our side that you got to talk to you.
Well, you'd be surprised. Mark Robertson came in studio. Stavros Anthony, who won his election, he's been on this show before. Yeah, I get a lot of Republicans that come on. There's a few that refuse to, of course. Adam Laxalt didn't and didn't want to come on. Joe Lombardo didn't. But thankfully, people like you do come on the show, Guy, and I do appreciate you for doing that, as always. So, Guy, what are your thoughts locally? I want to get your opinions locally on the election share. Obviously, for Republicans, great thing Joe Lombardo won, and I don't think Joe Lombardo is a crazy right-wing nut. I've never said that about him. I think the state's going to be fine. But, Jim Marchant loses, right? Catherine Cortez wins. Adam Laxalt goes down. Sigal Chattah goes down. Michelle Fiore goes down. What does that say, and what are your thoughts on that?
Brian, now that I'm not officially a candidate, I can kind of put my wonk hat on and hopefully, be helpful. But of course, I'd also speak for our side. I think what it says is that Nevada is a purple state, and now that's been reflected. You've got a Republican governor-elect, a Republican lieutenant governor-elect, and a Republican controller-elect. And, the one race, the Senate race went in the other direction, and the other constitutional state races went the other direction. We are what we are. We're purple state, definition of a purple state.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I personally believe that the election deniers, because I know you're not one of those, I know Lombardo's not one of those, I believe most reasonable Republicans did pretty well. But locally here, Jim Marchant, Adam Laxalt, Sigal Chattah, those kinds of people were not willing to admit that Joe Biden won a free and fair election. And those are also people that call themselves pro-life. I think those two issues, the abortion issue and election denying Trump supporters, I think that affects the Republican Party, not just in Nevada, but the entire country. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I'm still looking at the data coming out, and I think both sides are creating their narrative. I am surprised. Usually the polls have been, generous to Democrats in the past, and we've been surprised. And this time, we'll call it spade. The polls were generous to Republicans, and we were surprised. So I'm still looking over a lot of these races and a lot of these candidates, and I'm not making the conclusion you are, but I definitely am seeing the trend in this direction, right? Pennsylvania being the Pennsylvania governor race being a perfect example of that. So I would say your argument is a good one, and I'm waiting for the counter.
Fair enough.
And
fair enough. So
and then I'll say which one I think is
understood.
Has more credence.
Understood. Does it bother you, Guy, as a Republican living here in the great state of Nevada, that the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, has already made blatant accusations about the Clark County and about our voting here when there's literally no evidence to support the fact that there's been any cheating going on? Yet you have Donald Trump, a former president, basically attacking this state and saying there's cheating going on among the Democrats. I want to ask you, because I believe you are a reasonable Republican, does that bother you when the former Republican president makes, unsubstantiated claims like that?
So Brian, do you know Animal House, the movie?
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I feel like we beat our own pledges. You don't beat our pledges. We beat our own pledges.
Right.
Meaning, I want to go ahead and do the research on what happened and why it took so long, and but they're my pledges. Everybody else, please, no comments.
Rest in peace, John Belushi. Hey, Guy, you have you took to Twitter after the results in the governor's race here in Nevada, talking about, of course, the election of Joe Lombardo over Steve Sisolak. And look, you garnered a reaction, myself included, was on there. We had kind of a spirited exchange back and forth where you talked about, you made the comment that we are now going to be able to take our state back. What was the context of that comment? What is the reason for that? And what are you referring to when you talk about taking back the state of Nevada because of the results of the governor's election here in the state of Nevada?
Yeah, so what I mean by that is I think that, and you guys will agree with me, or maybe you won't, I think that one party control anywhere is not good. And I think what happened in the state of Nevada over the last 2-4 years is we had one party control top to bottom. And I believe, and you guys might disagree with me, that our legislature, with our governor always signing, we're passing a bunch of laws that are more California that reflect more California values than Nevada values. And when I say we take our state back, that's what I mean. It's like we're gonna, let's pass things and let's argue on things, and we're gonna veto things that don't necessarily reflect who we are, what we are. They only reflect probably a leftist perspective of things. And you had a governor Governor Sisolak, who actually just signed on all these things.
Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about Governor Sisolak, and by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with what you just said. I think it's good to have a mix of Republicans and Democrats that are reasonable, that are able to work together. I don't disagree with you on that at all, Guy. But one thing I will say about Governor Sisolak is that even before all the votes were counted, he put out a statement. He showed class. He conceded. He reached out to the Lombardo campaign. He said, if you need me, I'm here. I wish you the best of luck. I think you would agree with me that that's the right thing to do, and that's class. And even now, Laxalt hasn't reached out to the Mastow campaign, and there are a lot of election-denying Republicans out there that have refused to concede. Would you agree that Sisolak showed some class in doing what he did? And would you want to see more Republicans out there on the far right that clearly lost to do the same?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I wish I would have had access to Governor Sisolak, because I wanted to also thank him for the grace. I always say you want to be, I'm going to get this one right. This is where my French speaking sometimes gets in the way. I always say you want to be humble in victory and gracious in defeat. And I thought that Governor Sisolak was very gracious, and I wish I could have personally thanked him for this, and I would have tweeted something, but I didn't think they would follow me anyway. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. At the end of the day, I'm reading this great book, Brian, on the Nuremberg trials. It was written by the father of a fraternity brother of mine, and at the end of the book, the guy says, even though war is the most awful thing we ever do, the Geneva Convention and, we humans have, as ironic as this sounds, created rules of war. And and you actually, you don't do anything to prisoners of war, you respect them, and then blah, 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 all these kind of things. So to me, the rules of politics are that, you fight it out as hard. It's just like football. Beat the heck out of each other while you're on the field, but when the game's over, you go shake people's hands and you say, "Great job, man." And that's how I feel. That's how I'd like the rules of politics to go.
I agree. But Guy, do you think that is a fair criticism of your party as a whole? Because I haven't seen one Democrat in the last week that wasn't willing to concede, and that claimed, that the election was stolen. Yet, as you know, Guy, not every Republican. I gave Dr. Oz a lot of credit for doing the same thing that Governor Sisolak did. I gave him credit for that. Sure. But there are a lot of Republicans out there that are not willing to do what you just said. So what would be your message to them? The Adam Laxalt's clearly Adam Laxalt lost. We all know that. What would be your message to Adam Laxalt? Not only has he not conceded, but he hasn't even reached out to the Mastow campaign.
I'm a small fish here. If you look at the resources that particular campaign got, nationwide and everything. Brian, I'm going to use the same empathy and then again, that's why I am who I am. 4 years ago, whatever it was, Stacey Abrams had a hard time also giving in. So I'll tell you, having been in the arena, losing is one of the most painful feelings you will ever have in politics. I've lost in sports a lot, and usually I'm so freaking tired, and if I gave it my all, which usually I have, I just kind of I'm numb to it. But in politics, you lose and you're not numb to it. It's very, 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 very painful. And I'm going to be slightly empathetic, and I hope that we do the right thing at the right time here at some point, and say that we'll just concede. But the pain is the pain, and I understand it. And that's why I'm giving a little bit of leeway, if you like, about following the proper protocol that I would like to see.
Speaking of losing with grace, obviously, Guy, Brian, myself, and you talked about Steve Sisolak, and he's no longer going to be the governor here in Nevada. Myself and Brian explored a number of those reasons as to why Governor Sisolak is not going to be the governor here. Both of us are pretty much in agreement with respect to a big reason is going to be COVID-19. And yourself and I got into a little bit on Twitter regarding this situation and this whole kind of narrative being put forth. And this is a nationwide narrative, by the way. This is not just in the state of Nevada, where Democratic governors were doing everything wrong with respect to COVID-19, and Republican governors were doing everything right with respect to COVID-19. And that's something that we disagreed on. What do you think were the reasons why Steve Sisolak is no longer going to be the governor here in Nevada?
If I may first, I'll just say a little bit about the COVID situation. I don't, it's funny. You look at the COVID situation, and you could do the narrative that you just mentioned, which is, one side did everything right, one side did everything wrong. I'm usually not a everything right, everything wrong kind of a guy. I'm more of a common sense type of a situation. And to me, the common sense approach, which I don't think Governor Sisolak followed, and I wish I would have been able to talk to him when the things were happening. There came a time when common sense dictated that you've got to loosen up a little bit. And that was based on, we had that discussion when I was in with you guys the last time, based on what we learned, based on who we know was the most vulnerable, based on the balance between economy versus health, so on, so forth. I think this whole emergency powers that Governor Sisolak kept for a long, long time rubbed a lot of independents wrong. And COVID was probably the most important issue from that perspective, but there were other things. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is people talk about the quality of the candidate. Sheriff Lombardo has won twice in Clark County. He's a known commodity. As I was campaigning against him, I did my opposition research and so on. People like him. His cops like him. Mm-hmm. You hear that they don't. It's not true. I talk to people. He was a respected leader. And if you're a respected leader with good name recognition, and you won twice in Clark County, and you know that the rules, well, you don't know, but they did a great job getting the rules to come up and stand with him. I think this was I know you're asking a qualitative question, and I'm answering a quantitative question. I apologize, and I can come back to the qualitative issue. But you could run the numbers, as I did if I had been the candidate. You could run the numbers and say there's a way here to do this, which is that you get Clark County you don't lose big in Clark County, and then make sure you sweep the rurals, which is exactly what the sheriff and his campaign did, and they did it very, very well.
Yeah, you had a solid response there, but let me circle back to your comments regarding COVID-19. Look, you use the phrase common sense. I would address it in a way where I'd say it's an approach that everybody should take, regardless of Republican or Democrat. It's an approach that you would take where you listen to public health experts, right? You listen to scientists, you listen to doctors, you listen to people that actually know what to do in a situation of a pandemic, in a situation where you need lockdowns or don't need lockdowns, in a situation where you need procedures. You listen to those individuals instead of people like myself, a radio host, Brian Shapiro, Justin Chuck, Guy Nohra, people that don't understand what we need to do from a public health standpoint when it comes to COVID-19. So I know I'm kind of zeroing in on that topic. Yeah. And I'm doing it for a reason, because I said it's a narrative that's being put forth here in Nevada and across the country. But this is something that, to me, it's not just about common sense. It's about listening to individuals like Dr. Birx, Dr. Hahn, and Dr. Anthony Fauci, who are experts in this area.
Let me just chime in here real quick. So, Guy, I'll give you an example of what I think Guy is talking about. The second time Steve Sisolak shut down the local bars. I had an issue with that, Guy, as I'm sure you did, and a lot of people did. Why? Because he opened up the casinos. So there's no question that there was inconsistencies with some of the decision making. I will absolutely,
and I would agree with that, Brian. Yes, I would agree. As someone who works in the hospitality industry, I would agree with that.
Yeah, Steve Sisolak was not perfect. There's a reason why he lost. I don't think he ran a great campaign. I don't think he was great with the media, and I don't think the sky is falling if Joe Lombardo, when Joe Lombardo becomes our next governor. Guy, with that being said, I guess this would be my last question for you. On a national level, as a staunch Republican, you think it's a good thing that Donald Trump is still going to be the face of your party for now, and that he's going to announce that he's going to be running for president? And do you put any responsibility on why Republicans didn't do as well as they thought they were going to do, and put that on Donald Trump?
So if I may, Brian, I do want to address the COVID-19 issue because I think Chris was saying something. Chris, I've been in science, an investor in science my whole career.
Yeah, biotech venture capital, tremendous success. Understood, and I'm fully aware of your background, no doubt. Yeah.
But let me tell you how I made my decisions on science. Anybody who's in science will tell you there's not one side. You always, when I look at Alzheimer's disease, there are 2 and at least 3 theories about how what Alzheimer's is caused by and how you fix it. So consequently, when I make an investment, I have got to listen to all 3 sides and all 3 theories, and then I make up my mind and I live with it. I'm going to argue that there was another side on science and health that Governor Sisolak did not listen to. That a bunch of governors in the blue states did not listen to. They only listened to conventional wisdom / one side. So I'm sure you've seen the Great Barrington Declaration.
Yeah, we're gonna look. I know we can get in the weeds on this. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that because look, there's nothing to the point that all the Democrat. Again, we're getting back to this point where you're trying to. This is a point you're trying to make that the Democratic governors were making all the wrong decisions regarding COVID-19, and you're going to tout the likes of Brian Kemp and Greg Abbott, and then, of course, a guy that you didn't even mention, by the way, during the interaction back and forth on Twitter, obviously Ron DeSantis in Florida. It is not true, this idea out there, that all Republican governors, or independent governors for that matter, did everything, or not even everything, that were way better across the board with respect to COVID-19 than Democratic governors. It's just not true. It's not reality. So the point you're trying to make, and look, no disrespect to your life sciences background and you working in the biotech industry as a venture capitalist, I get all that. It doesn't, but that by no means qualifies you to be making expert opinions or having reflections regarding how public health experts should have handled COVID. So, I mean, look, I know I'm kind of being straightforward here and getting a little over the top, but it's just a fact that the narrative you're trying to put forth is not factually accurate, that Democrats were wrong and Republicans were right on COVID-19.
Go ahead, Guy. Let him respond to that. Go ahead, Guy.
Sure. Yeah. Look, if I was governor, I would have done what Governor Kemp did and not what Governor Sisolak did, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. And I would have had we would have had less unemployment. We would probably had no worse outcomes when it comes to disease and people who, death rates. And we were just people, our kids would have graduated from school and played sports and so on and so forth. But yeah, we're going to have to agree to disagree because I'm not saying everything. I mean, look, Jared Polis did a pretty good job in Colorado. He doesn't get credit for this. I give him credit for this. I think Whitmer was awful, but she got reelected. So what the hell do I know? All I know is what I would have done in Nevada that Sisolak did not do. And I would never use the rhetoric of, we did everything right, they did everything wrong. That's never how these things work. Mm-hmm. I would say that I would have been much closer to Governor Kemp than I would have been to Governor.
Okay, I'll back off the statement I made regarding that. But look, you cannot just come out flat and say, okay, a governor of Georgia would handle COVID-19 the same way that the governor of Nevada would do. It doesn't make any sense.
I was just going to add this. I was.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I was just going to add this. I was just going to say in Georgia they don't have the Las Vegas Strip.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many things that are different about Nevada and Georgia. So the statement doesn't make any sense.
I would just make the point, if I may, if Chris can calm down for a moment. The Las Vegas Strip is not in Georgia. I mean, you understand, Guy, that this is the biggest tourist destination in the world. And while I understand what you're saying, these are two different states and two different needs. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, and I think what we should do, guys, is whether it's on air or off air, we can have the discussion about the Strip and what I would have done and how I would have done it.
Sure.
But this is like an hour discussion.
It is.
No, it's actually more like a 6-hour discussion, to be quite honest with you.
Brian,
if we're going to take a deep
wanna...
enough dive, Guy, it's at least a 6-hour
Go ahead,
discussion.
Guy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room. You asked me a question earlier.
Sure.
If you want me to answer it, I will.
Please.
If you don't, I won't.
Please.
That's
We got
fine.
a couple more minutes. Go ahead, Guy. Thank you.
Okay. I am the kind of person, again, being old-fashioned and traditional, that I like. I know this is gonna. I've got to be really careful here because I want to stay in the arena and I don't want to get taken off for something stupid I say the last minute, last 30 minutes of an interview. I always believe that proper etiquette is that after you've been president, you retire. Just because that's how they've done it in the past. When Clinton used to get involved in things that kind of bothered me, every once in a while, Obama would come and get involved with things that would bother me. And of course, Donald Trump is very involved in things. And I always think there's something about the right protocol, which is you've had your turn. I, as one, think it was a hell of a ride. It was, as far as the economy and America first and international relations and on and on and on and on. Let's respect the protocol and kind of watch things happen, and every once in a while be the gray-haired, advice giver, if you like. So I'm answering the question indirectly, and I'm sure I'm going to get the shit beat out of me out of a bunch of people on my side. But that's just kind of how I look at things. I look at things where...
But Guy, I think a lot of Republicans feel the way you feel. I disagree with you. I think a lot of people feel the way you feel. Maybe they don't have the guts to say it like you do. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, our time is up. But Guy, I want to say this. I always appreciate it when you're willing to come on this show and speak your mind and have a really good discussion. I respect the heck out of you for that and what you've done in your life. And I've always felt that way about you. I think you're a very smart, reasonable, nice guy. And trust me, I wouldn't say that about a lot of people. So I really do. I really do appreciate you coming on, Guy. I really do.
Myself as well.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And hopefully we can get you in studio for an hour when you're back in town. And I'd love to dissect your brain a little bit with a lot of other things.
For a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to take, guys. Not just 60 minutes.
We'll have a beer with Chris, and we'll talk about COVID for 5 hours. So
there you go.
One beer.
That's what. Now you're talking my speed.
You are going to be so impressed when I talk to you about sports.
Boy, that sounds like torture.
I'm smart in this stuff.
We didn't even get your sports takes at all. That's
listening
crazy.
to Guy and Chris argue about COVID, that sounds like torture for 5 hours. No, in all seriousness, Guy, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Guy.
All right, guys.
Take care.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. That is Guy Nohra joining us, everybody. Spirited conversation and a fun show. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Good times.
Tomorrow on the show, the guys from Nevada Veterans in Politics will be joining us, and I believe we'll have Kevin Kruger on the line tomorrow as well. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well,